Is 6 hours of sleep enough? It's a question millions of people silently ask themselves every morning, usually while reaching for coffee, scrolling their phone, or rushing out the door. In a world that rewards productivity and hustle, 6 hours of sleep has almost become a badge of honor. Some people even brag about surviving on less. But what if that extra hour you're skipping isn't just making you tired? What if it's quietly changing your brain, your metabolism, and your future health? For decades, we've been told that modern life is stealing our sleep. Screens glow late into the night, streaming platforms never end, notifications buzz at all hours. The assumption feels obvious: we must be sleeping less than ever before. But interestingly, that fear isn't new. More than a century ago, doctors were already warning that the pace of modern life was causing widespread insomnia. In fact, a medical editorial from the late 1800s blamed the hurry and excitement of modern life for sleep problems. No smartphones, no social media, just the same human struggle. So are we actually sleeping less today? When researchers stopped relying on memory-based surveys and started measuring sleep objectively, the answer surprised many people. Adult sleep duration hasn't changed very much over the past several decades. In some places, average sleep time has even slightly increased. So if the problem isn't that we're sleeping dramatically less than before, the real question becomes more important. Are we sleeping enough? To answer that, we first need to understand what sleep actually does. Sleep isn't simply rest. It's not just shutting down. While your body may appear still, your brain becomes incredibly active. During sleep, your brain performs maintenance that simply cannot happen while you're awake. One of the most important discoveries in recent years is that sleep activates a cleaning system in the brain that flushes out toxic waste products. These wastes build up during the day as a result of normal brain activity. When you sleep, fluid flows through brain tissue, washing away these harmful byproducts. One of those substances is beta-amyloid, a sticky protein strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease. Even a single night of total sleep deprivation has been shown to increase beta-amyloid accumulation in key brain regions. That means missing sleep doesn't just make you groggy the next day. It creates measurable changes inside your brain. When sleep loss becomes chronic, those effects may compound over time. This is why sleep deprivation has been linked to cognitive decline, memory problems, slower reaction times, and impaired decision-making. It's not just about feeling tired. It's about how efficiently your brain can function and protect itself. And the effects aren't limited to the brain. Large population studies have consistently shown that people who regularly sleep less than 7 hours per night have a higher risk of developing chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes. The increased risk seen in people sleeping 6 hours compared to those sleeping 7 or 8 is comparable to the risk associated with being physically inactive. In other words, losing that 1 hour of sleep may be just as harmful as skipping regular exercise. Sleep also plays a critical role in regulating hormones that control hunger and appetite. When you don't get enough sleep, levels of ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates appetite, increase, while levels of leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, decrease. This combination makes you hungrier, less satisfied after eating, and more likely to crave high-calorie foods. Over time, this can contribute to weight gain and metabolic dysfunction, even if your diet hasn't changed. But sleep affects more than just metabolism and memory. It influences immune function, cardiovascular health, emotional regulation, and even pain sensitivity. Short sleep duration has been associated with higher blood pressure, increased inflammation, weakened immune response, and greater vulnerability to stress. It becomes harder to cope emotionally, harder to focus, and harder to recover physically. To understand how much sleep humans truly need, scientists have looked beyond modern society. They studied isolated, pre-industrial communities with no access to electric lighting, smartphones, or modern work schedules. These populations followed natural light cues, going to sleep a few hours after sunset and waking before sunrise. Surprisingly, they didn't sleep 8 or 9 hours. On average, they slept about 6.5 to 7 hours per night, spending around 7.5 hours in bed. This suggests that the idea of needing 8 full hours may be more flexible than we think. Human sleep appears to have a natural range, not a single magic number. However, there is a crucial difference between occasionally sleeping 6 hours and consistently doing so night after night. When researchers tracked hundreds of thousands of people over long periods, sometimes spanning decades, a clear pattern emerged. Both short sleep and very long sleep were associated with higher mortality risk. People sleeping around 7 hours per night consistently showed the lowest risk of death from all causes combined. That doesn't mean sleeping longer automatically harms you, but it does suggest that 7 hours sits at a biological sweet spot for many adults. So where does that leave 6 hours? 6 hours isn't catastrophic. It won't destroy your health overnight. Some people may function reasonably well on it for short periods. But over the long term, sleeping 6 hours instead of 7 may subtly increase the risk of cognitive decline, metabolic disease, and overall health problems. The danger lies not in an occasional short night, but in chronic sleep restriction becoming the norm. It's also important to recognize that sleep needs vary between individuals. Genetics, age, activity level, and overall health all play a role. A small percentage of people may genuinely function optimally on 6 hours, but they are rare. Most people who believe they've adapted to less sleep are actually just accustomed to feeling tired. Studies show that people who are chronically sleep deprived often underestimate how impaired they truly are. Another factor to consider is consistency. Sleeping 7 hours one night and 5 the next is not the same as sleeping 6.5 hours consistently. Your body thrives on rhythm. Irregular sleep schedules can disrupt circadian timing, leading to many of the same negative effects as insufficient sleep. There's also the issue of sleep quality. 6 hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep is not the same as 6 hours spent tossing, turning, and waking up repeatedly. Factors like stress, caffeine, alcohol, screen exposure, and light pollution can all reduce sleep quality, making shorter sleep even less restorative. Interestingly, while short sleep shows clear experimental evidence of harm, the risks associated with long sleep are less clear. Many scientists believe that sleeping 9 or more hours is often a consequence of underlying illness rather than the cause. Chronic disease, depression, unemployment, and low physical activity can all increase time spent in bed. In this case, long sleep may be a symptom, not the problem. What we do know is that insufficient sleep produces measurable negative effects in controlled experiments. Reaction times slow, blood sugar control worsens. Inflammation increases, cognitive performance declines. These changes don't require years to appear. Some can happen within days. So, is 6 hours of sleep enough? For most people, most of the time, the answer is probably no. It may be survivable, but survival is not the same as optimal health. Sleep is not wasted time. It's an investment in your brain, your body, and your future self. The goal doesn't have to be perfection. Missing sleep occasionally is part of being human. Life happens. What matters most is what you do consistently. If you're averaging 6 hours because you believe it's enough, science suggests you may want to reconsider. If you're averaging 6 hours because your schedule leaves you no choice, then the priority becomes finding ways to protect and improve sleep whenever possible. 7 hours may not sound like much, but that extra hour could mean better memory, better metabolic health, stronger immunity, improved mood, and a lower risk of chronic disease over time. Sleep doesn't make headlines the way diet trends or workout routines do, but it quietly shapes almost every system in your body. In the end, sleep isn't just about how long you live, it's about how well you live, and sometimes the most productive thing you can do is close your eyes and let your brain do the work it was designed to do. 6 hours of sleep may feel manageable, and for many people it has become a routine part of daily life. But scientific evidence suggests it isn't optimal for most adults. Large, long-term population studies that followed hundreds of thousands of people for many years consistently show a clear pattern. The lowest risk of chronic disease and early death occurs in those who sleep around 7 hours per night. When sleep drops to 6 hours on a regular basis, health risks begin to rise, even if the difference seems small. This increase in risk isn't dramatic overnight, which is why 6 hours can feel good enough in the short term. People can still function, work, and socialize, but over months and years, that missing hour adds up. Research links habitual short sleep to higher rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cognitive decline. Importantly, these findings appear across different countries, age groups, and lifestyles, suggesting this isn't just a cultural effect, but a biological one. What makes this particularly important is that many people who sleep 6 hours believe they've adapted. Studies show that while subjective sleepiness may level off, objective performance continues to decline. Reaction time, attention, and decision-making remain impaired even when individuals feel normal. The body may adjust expectations, but it doesn't fully compensate for the lost recovery time. 7 hours appears to sit in a biological sweet spot for most people. It's enough time for the brain to complete critical maintenance processes, for hormones to stabilize, and for the cardiovascular system to recover from daily stress. While individual needs vary slightly, consistently getting only 6 hours places most people just below that optimal range. It may not feel harmful today, but over the long term, it quietly increases the odds of poorer health and a shorter lifespan. Sleep plays a critical role in maintaining brain health because it is the primary time when the brain cleans itself. While you sleep, a specialized waste clearance system becomes highly active, allowing fluid to flow through brain tissue and flush out toxic byproducts that accumulate during waking hours. These wastes are a natural result of normal brain activity, but if they are not removed efficiently, they can begin to interfere with how brain cells communicate and function. One of the most well-known substances cleared during sleep is beta amyloid, a sticky protein strongly linked to the development of Alzheimer's disease. During deep sleep, the spaces between brain cells expand, making it easier for this waste to be washed away. When sleep is shortened or disrupted, this cleaning process is reduced. Studies have shown that even a single night of significant sleep loss can lead to a measurable increase in beta amyloid levels in key brain regions involved in memory and learning. The concern isn't just about one bad night. When short sleep becomes a habit, the brain may not have enough time to fully clear these harmful substances on a regular basis. Over months and years, repeated buildup could contribute to long-term cognitive decline. This helps explain why people who consistently sleep less than 7 hours are at higher risk of memory problems and neurodegenerative diseases later in life. What makes this especially important is that the brain cannot perform this cleaning efficiently while you're awake. No amount of rest, caffeine, or mental breaks can replace sleep's unique role. Sleep is not passive downtime, it is active maintenance. By consistently cutting sleep short, you're essentially skipping the brain's nightly cleanup, allowing toxic waste to linger and gradually compromise brain health over time. Chronic short sleep has a powerful impact on metabolism, making it a significant risk factor for both weight gain and type 2 diabetes. When you consistently sleep only 6 hours a night, your body's ability to regulate blood sugar and appetite begins to deteriorate. This isn't simply a matter of having less energy to make healthy choices. It's driven by measurable hormonal and physiological changes that occur when sleep is restricted. One of the key mechanisms involves hormones that control hunger. Short sleep increases levels of ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates appetite, while reducing levels of leptin, the hormone that signals fullness. This hormonal imbalance makes you feel hungrier throughout the day and less satisfied after eating, often pushing you toward high-calorie, sugary, or fatty foods. Even when calorie intake increases only slightly, these changes can accumulate over time, leading to gradual weight gain. Sleep loss also directly impairs how the body handles glucose. With insufficient sleep, cells become less sensitive to insulin, the hormone responsible for moving sugar out of the bloodstream and into cells for energy. As insulin sensitivity drops, blood sugar levels rise, forcing the pancreas to work harder. Over time, this strain increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Large-scale studies show that people who regularly sleep around 6 hours have a significantly higher diabetes risk compared to those sleeping 7 to 8 hours. What makes this especially concerning is that the increased diabetes risk associated with sleeping 6 hours is comparable to the risk linked to physical inactivity. In other words, cutting sleep short can undermine metabolic health as much as skipping exercise. Even people who eat well and stay active may struggle to maintain healthy blood sugar control if they consistently don't get enough sleep. Many people believe that they've adapted to sleeping less, especially if 6 hours has been their routine for years. They may say they feel fine, function normally, and no longer feel overwhelmingly tired. However, feeling used to less sleep doesn't mean the brain and body are actually performing at their best. Research shows that chronic sleep deprivation alters how we perceive our own level of impairment, making us poor judges of how sleep loss is truly affecting us. In controlled studies, participants restricted to short sleep for several nights in a row often report that their sleepiness levels stabilize after a few days. Subjectively, they feel no worse than before. Objectively, however, their performance continues to decline. Reaction times slow, attention lapses become more frequent, and working memory weakens. Tasks that require sustained focus or quick decision-making are especially affected, even though individuals may not notice the change in themselves. This disconnect is dangerous because it creates false confidence. People who are chronically sleep-deprived may believe they are alert enough to drive, work, or make important decisions, when in reality their cognitive function is impaired in ways similar to alcohol intoxication. Micro-lapses in attention lasting just a few seconds become more common and can have serious consequences, particularly in high-risk situations. What makes chronic sleep loss particularly insidious is that the brain doesn't fully adapt. While the feeling of sleepiness may dull, the underlying deficits remain. The brain simply recalibrates its sense of normal to a lower level of performance. Over time, this can affect productivity, learning, emotional regulation, and safety. Being accustomed to less sleep doesn't mean you're thriving. It often means you've learned to live with reduced cognitive capacity without realizing how much better you could function with adequate rest. When it comes to sleep, consistency is far more important than chasing perfection. Many people worry that missing a night of sleep or having a few short nights has already undone their health, but the human body is resilient. An occasional late night or early morning is a normal part of life, and on its own is unlikely to cause lasting harm. The real problem begins when short sleep becomes a regular pattern rather than a temporary exception. Your body operates on internal clocks known as circadian rhythms, which regulate sleep, hormone release, metabolism, and many other biological processes. These rhythms thrive on regularity. Going to bed and waking up at wildly different times, or repeatedly cutting sleep short during the workweek and trying to catch up on weekends, can disrupt these systems. Over time, this disruption can produce many of the same negative effects as chronic sleep deprivation, including impaired glucose control, increased stress hormones, and reduced cognitive performance. Regularly getting at least 7 hours of sleep allows the brain and body to complete essential recovery processes night after night. It supports stable mood, sharper thinking, better immune function, and healthier metabolism. Consistency also improves sleep quality, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep, which further enhances the benefits of rest. In contrast, irregular sleep schedules often lead to lighter, more fragmented sleep, even if total time in bed seems adequate. The goal is not to achieve perfect sleep every single night, but to create a reliable pattern most of the time. Prioritizing consistent sleep sends a signal to your body that it's safe to rest and recover. Over weeks and months, this regularity compounds into better long-term brain and body health, proving that steady habits matter far more than occasional lapses.